Alda became popular because of MASH, but it almost killed him. People in the cast stopped talking to him. One of them got into a fight that stopped work for 3 days. Alda was in almost every scene for 11 years straight, even when she was sick or hurt. Since I was 8 years old, I've always wanted to be the best writer I can be. I did a cartwheel on my way to the stage to get my award when they told me I won an Emmy for writing this show. He wasn't telling anyone a terrible family secret. Fans were shocked when he finally told them what was wrong in 2018. It's great to see you. Some of you might be shocked to learn that I haven't told anyone in public until now that I have Parkinson's disease. In fact, the disease had been showing signs for years. Alda is going through the saddest time of his life right now. She was born in Manhattan on January 28, 1936. Alfonso Joseph D. Abruzzo was his real name at birth. Robert Alda, his dad, was an actor and singer. Joan Brown, his mother, was once Miss New York. In other words, Alan was always around show business, but this wasn't a perfect, fancy life in Hollywood. It was rough, loud, and real. As a child, he lived in a tiny 2-room apartment right above a lounge. When he tried to sleep, the music made the floor shake. Alan heard music, laughter, and the buzz of performers, while most kids heard bedtime stories. Things were dark behind the lights and music, though. He saw his mother try to stab his father when he was only 6 years old. At the time, no one called her insanity. He didn't get the word, but he knew what it meant. There was danger in the house where he lived, and quiet could mean that something very bad was going on. That event changed him. He learned to be aware, read people's moods, and keep things under control. Alan got polio when he was 7 years old. It was 1943, and everyone was afraid of getting sick. There was damage to his left leg. Instead of an iron lung, his parents chose a very harsh method of care. Someone wrapped him in hot wool and stretched him out for hours. He screamed even though it hurt, and sometimes he bit on cloth to block out the sound. He was bored, so his dad told him jokes, and something clicked. Alan understood that there could be both pain and joy at the same time. That lesson, how to find humor in pain, became the most important thing in his work. In the same year, Alan went on the road with his dad's dancing troupe while he was still getting better. His school was in the background. People in his class danced, played music, and were comedians. Like a sponge, he watched everything, laughed at every joke, and took it all in. He learned how to hold a crowd and keep time. Before most kids learned fractions, Alan learned how to take charge of a stage. From theater wings in small places across the country, he saw the world, with all of its rough edges and beautiful parts. Alan had been on stage earlier than that. When he was 6 months old, a broken theater prop made his dad carry him on stage as a real baby for a comedy act. That was his first show. Before he was 4 years old, he did 17 shows. Alan thought that clapping was normal. He was used to it after dinner by the time he was 3. So deeply was performance ingrained in him that he asked a friend, "When does the audience arrive?" He didn't always go by the name Alan Alda. His dad came up with that name. He took his first name Al and last name Da. It was easier to say than D. Brudu, and theater ads looked better with it. When Alan became an actor, he kept the name. Things didn't get better at home. The illness in his mother got worse. By age 11, Alan could look into her eyes and tell that something bad was about to happen. She would speak to herself or burn notes every once in a while. She was sure that someone was poisoning her one time when she stood over his bed with a knife. They moved 11 times because she thought there were spies in the walls that they were running from. It wasn't talked about at school or with family. Alan took care of her part-time. He turned to entertainment to deal with his feelings. He first did shows during school lunch breaks. He wrote down more than 70 jokes every day and labeled each one with what feeling it made him feel. Line by line, he copied radio scripts from Bob Hope and Jack Benny to try to figure out how humor worked. When Alan was 13, his mother was in the hospital, and he made up funny characters that could talk and move. He didn't cry when things went wrong. He did something. At one school play, Alan stepped in and made everyone laugh when his mother had a scream. He didn't feel bad that night because of the cheers. Alan also felt safe at White Plains Archbishop Steenack High School. He was in 4 big plays a year and worked at a radio station on the weekends. Even though he had a lot going on at home, he kept up his grades and got a 3.8 GPA. One teacher, Father Matthew Conlin, thought he was unique. Some people thought Alan had been properly trained because of how well he performed a difficult monologue from Romeo and Juliet during a lesson. But he had learned everything on his own. He had spent his whole life studying people, pain, and time. While Alan Alda was in college at Fordham University in the early 1950s, things were not going well for him. He had terrible insomnia that sometimes made him see things that weren't there. It all went back to the stress and pain he felt while getting treatment for polio as a child. Things changed, though, in 1953. The college radio station WFUV gave him a safe place to stay. He would go there up to 14 hours a week to learn everything he could about radio and TV. It turned into his world. He almost lost everything when he got in trouble for questioning a local politician live on radio about segregation. At that time, it was a brave move. He almost got kicked out of the station. He also learned at about the same time that his singing wasn't good enough for acting. A doctor told him that he had nodules on his vocal cords. She didn't give up. He started working out his voice every day, even reading Shakespeare out loud while gargling salt water. He worked with opera coach Elinor Steber and slowly changed the sound of his voice. He beat out 78 other students to win the Jesuit Oratory Contest in 1955 with a fiery speech about civil rights. The head of the university that had threatened him stood up and cheered. It was the same year that Alda went to Europe. He had a terrible time during his junior year abroad. He lost his papers, visa, money, and everything else in Paris. He worked under the table as a teacher for wealthy French families to make money. His small room flooded twice, and all of his notes got wet. 9 days was all he had to do over a semester's worth of work. As part of waiting for God, he performed in Rome in an illegal show at the Roman Forum. While the play was going on, the whole group was arrested. Alda was locked up for 37 hours before the U.S. government freed him. After that came Amsterdam. As he worked on a TV show with his dad, he suddenly became very sick from an allergy to stage makeup. He went into allergic shock just 7 minutes before the show. He was having trouble breathing. Still, he went on stage and played for 42 minutes while medics with adrenaline waited off to the side. He would always remember that scary moment. After that, he worked hard to get better health care for artists, which was something he really cared about for the rest of his career. He joined the Army in 1957. A lot of people think his time was dull, but that's not true. Records that were made public in 2012 showed that he worked in Project Stargate, a secret psychological operations unit. With his theater skills, he was able to make up fake identities for training tasks. He even learned to break codes at a speed of 100 to 27 words per minute, which was the second best in his group of 346. During a drill one night, live bullets were loaded by mistake. 2 shots were just over 8 inches away from him. For many years, he didn't know that the Army had his name on a list of people to call back until 1971, just in case of a national disaster. The sarcastic, anti-authority doctor he played on MASH was shaped by what he went through. Something strange happened a year before he joined the Army. In 1956, Alda met Arlene Weiss at a dinner party in New York City. The story of how they fell in love and ate cake off the ground is always told. But it's not all that. That dinner was planned. Leonard Bernstein put it together. He thought that both of them were smart. The party took place in the flat of Russian pianist Vladimir Ashkenazy. The night began badly. Alda made fun of Arlene's study. She said his dreams of becoming an actor were selfish. Things were tense. Then Arlene tipped over a rum cake while they were arguing about Jean-Paul Sartre. They both knelt down, laughed, and picked it up from the ground. That's when things changed. It took her 27 seconds to laugh. He thought about it all the time. They got married on March 15, 1957, but things almost didn't work out that day. Alan had surgery just 2 days ago to fix an infected wisdom tooth. In every picture, his face looked swollen. It rained the night before at the church they had booked. They got married in the flat of composer Richard Rodgers. Then, 90 minutes before the wedding, their rings disappeared. They were taken by Alan's cousin, who is 4 years old. A mistake was made on their marriage certificate. Whites should have been Vices. They didn't notice for 25 years. It didn't matter any of this. A doctor told Arlene not to get pregnant because of her heart condition, but they stayed together for 66 years and had 3 girls. He turned down a big Broadway part in 1962 because it would have kept him away from Arlene, who was pregnant with their second child. Everything was changed by that choice. Family was always the most important thing. Alda's performing career went slowly at first. His first show on Broadway was only in America in 1959, but critics kept saying that he looked a lot like his famous father, Robert Alda. He was even known as Robert Alda's boy. One director told him, "He looks like his father, but he doesn't have the presence." That comment stuck with him. From 1960 to 1962, he turned down 3 parts because they made him think of roles his father had played. He even thought about giving up acting at one point to work in ads. Things started to change in 1966, though. As the lead in the show The Apple Tree, Alda had to play 3 very different roles. He had bronchitis the whole time, but he still came to practice every morning, often after getting treatment for his throat. On opening night, he had a fever but still did the show. His name was put in for a Tony. He played the lead role in The Owl and the Pussycat with Diana Sands the next year. They were one of the first mixed-race couples on Broadway. 47 letters of hate were sent by people who went to the show. But Alda gave a 6-minute speech in which she changed her feelings 17 times. In the future, acting schools would study that scene. He trained like a real NFL player for his first big movie, Paper Lion, which came out in 1968. During shooting, he hurt his head and broke 3 ribs. At one point, he was knocked out in front of a stadium crowd for 4 minutes. When he woke up, he kept playing. Then came the Maisto Waltz in 1971, a scary movie about someone taking over your body. She worked on the piano for 4 months, but then she learned that they would use a hand double for close-ups. There were also strange events on that set. The room got very cold, the lights kept flickering, and the cameras kept breaking down. Alda didn't talk about that shoot in public for almost 20 years. Still, the turns down kept coming. He was turned down for 32 TV parts between 1962 and 1971. He even made it to the final round of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. before being kicked out. The group said he wasn't really dangerous. He didn't have enough money to pay his rent, so he had to borrow some. In 1967, he shot a pilot called We'll Get By. Test audiences liked it a lot, but it crashed. He couldn't work for 18 months because of the deal. He did dinner theater in Pennsylvania for $175 a week in 1972, lived off peanut butter, and shared a room with 4 other players. He set a due date for himself. By September, if nothing changed, he was going to quit his job and become a teacher. No, each one is enjoyable in its own way. When you're acting well, you feel like you're on cloud 9. You seem to be floating in the air. Yes, this is a really great feeling. Then MASH came along. Alda almost missed the test. The Glass House was being filmed in Utah, and he had to get to Los Angeles that same night. The pilot of the plane that his contact hired got sick. They had to get to Nevada early. To rent a car, Alda put up his grandfather's pocket watch as security. He then drove 270 miles at high speeds. He got to the studio at 9:17 p.m., while his makeup was still on. The person in charge of casting was about to leave. Alda showed up unprepared and gave a raw performance that got him the part. She didn't say yes right away, though. He asked for time off every 4 weekends to go to New Jersey to see his family. The studio said no. He didn't give up. They finally agreed, but he had to pay for his own tickets. In the end, the show cost him $187,000 altogether. He never talked about it in public again until many years later. Alan Alda did a lot more than play Hawkeye Pierce. He lived with him for 11 years straight. Alda was in almost every scene that MASH ever shot. He only missed a few of the 256 shows. He kept going even though he was sick, tired, and burned out. In 1978, he filmed an entire show while sick with the flu and a 103 degrees fever. A doctor stood off camera the whole time, ready to step in and help. Things became even worse in 1979. He worked from Monday to Wednesday. Thursdays, he was in charge. Every Friday, he wrote. He learned up to 30 pages of lines every single day. In the same year, he passed out on set from being so tired. The crew hired a body double for long shots without telling him. When Alda found out, he told them they had to reshoot everything, which they did. Alda did more than just play, though. He took it because he wanted more power. In 1975, he wrote the show's first episode and quickly became its main source of ideas. When head writer Larry Galbart quit, Alda filled in the whole time. It was later found out by studio records that by season 6, he had changed more than half of the dialogue in shows he hadn't even written. He was known for doing a lot of takes. It took Rader 47 tries to get right in one scene, and he was strong. Since these people were off to the side, it was like having the whole crowd watch from the wings while you played a scene for the camera. From season 5 on, Alda was free to strike any story that he thought didn't fit with the show's message. 14 full shows were never shown because of that. Even though they pretended he was just a cast member, CBS had to talk to Alda directly about any creative choice by season 9. He wrote or helped write 31 shows. 32 was his job. Plus being in charge of the group every week, that's almost a quarter of the whole show. The awards came next. He got an Emmy for running the show, writing, and acting all in the same year. It had never been done before in 1979. He even put his job at risk to show an episode about sexism. CBS didn't want to show it, but Alda said she would quit if they did. They gave up. After a cruel episode of MASH in 1982 that left him with real burns on his arms because he wouldn't use a stunt double, he finally won his last playing Emmy. It wasn't so easy behind the scenes, though. Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, quit after the 3rd season. When his deal was made public in 2019, it was clear that Alda getting 80% of the scenes they shared was a big reason. In season 6, Harry Morgan and Alda got into a fight when Harry found out that Alda had changed one of his moving scenes. 3 days later, the set was turned off. Loretta's suite almost left after Alda told her what to do in a heated scene in the shower. In the end, everyone on set shared their lunches. People who backed Alda sat at one table, while those who didn't sat at another. Alda also wrote the last show. The story was a secret to him until just a few days before filming. That way, the actor's tears would seem real. It worked, but not everyone let him off the hook. David Ogden Stiers was so mad that he didn't talk to Alda for 6 months. His third idea was the famous goodbye message scene from the chopper. CBS turned down the first 2 because they were too political. He was also writing movies at the same time. One was called The Seduction of Joe Tinnan. In the middle of MASH, he wrote it, sometimes taking notes at 3 a.m. It did well at the box office and earned him a nod for the Writers Guild Award. On set, he changed almost half of the script, got into a fight with the director, and persuaded Meryl Streep to play the part 7 times after she had already said no. Then came his first movie as a director, The Four Seasons. The studios didn't think it would work. They only meant for it to make a small amount of money, but it made over $50 million. It cost more than $1 million more to make the movie because Alda insisted on shooting real seasonal changes over 13 months. Alda wouldn't replace Carol Burnett when she got pneumonia, so she changed 31 scenes instead. He filmed most of the movie while having attacks in his stomach and trying to hide the pain. For me, what's exciting is what a good picture it is. That it's, movies are usually fine whether you go to them, are in them, or just hear about them. In 1992, he shocked Hollywood all over again. In Whispers in the Dark, he played a cruel therapist. It wasn't like his MASH picture at all. He watched real therapy sessions and even talked to 2 killers to get ready. He worked with a zoologist, lost 27 pounds, and trained his voice to sound calm but creepy. The part was so serious that it hurt his marriage and gave him bad dreams. It did work, though. People were shocked, and critics praised him for changing his image. Alan Alda had a well-known name for many years. Things quieted down in the early 2000s, though. There wasn't as much fame after MASH, then something changed in 2004. It was already known for its sharp writing and strong characters before he started The West Wing. Arnold Vinnick was a Republican senator from California that Alda played. He had to learn how to do this new job. In real life, he leaned left, but Vinnick was a conservative who didn't like it when corporations got free stuff or when religious groups had a say in politics. He didn't just show up a few times. At least 28 shows had Aldo in them. His first show was in Season 6, Episode 8, and by Episode 13, his name was in the credits. That said a lot by itself. He wasn't just a guest. He was once again a big deal. At the end of the show, his character was named Secretary of State, a strong ending that shows respect. Alan Alda still had something important to give, as shown by this event. It was time for the Emmys. He got his 6th Emmy in 2006, when he was 70 years old. This time it's for the Best Supporting Player in a Drama Series. It had been 24 years since his last Emmy win in 1982. Gregory Senn, William Shatner, Oliver Platt, and Michael Imperioli were among the big stars he beat. People saw that moment and knew that Alda was still a big deal in TV, even though he wasn't funny anymore. There was another big event that year. Alda was nominated for his first Academy Award. He was 68 years old. He played a shady politician named Senator Ralph Owen Brewster in the movie The Aviator. His job was to bring down Howard Hughes. Anything Alda had done before this part was much lighter. Leonardo DiCaprio didn't think Alda could do it at first. He believed that he was too nice. But after seeing Alda work, even DiCaprio changed his mind. The vote did not lead to a win. The award went to Morgan Freeman, but it brought Alda back into real Hollywood conversations. He wasn't just the guy from MASH anymore. The next event showed that it wasn't a one-time return. Alda kept getting good parts. The father of Jack Donaghy in 30 Rock was played by him. It was funny and sincere, and it got him another Emmy nomination. He was in The Big C from 2011 to 2013. Then, at age 79, he played a criminal genius in The Blacklist and was nominated for another Emmy. He didn't slow down even when he was 80 years old. Alda was in Ray Donovan from 2018 to 2020. He played a man who was caught up in Hollywood's dirty secrets. He worked until he was 86 years old. He even came back for the 2022 movie Ray Donovan. He kept playing even though he was told he had Parkinson's in 2015. He didn't try to hide it. In Marriage Story and other acts, his tremors could be seen. He didn't care, though. He thought that showing it would help make things normal. He did something risky in 2016. He joined Horace and Pete, a Weird Bear, Bones web series made by Louis C.K. There were no ads or press releases. Episodes were just secretly posted online. Uncle Pete was a mean old bartender that Alda played. Some people thought it was one of his saddest parts, but they loved it. People said it was the best work he had done in years. Even when Louis C.K. got into trouble, Alda spoke the truth. I admire him as an artist, but what he did was awful. It was complicated, just like the show itself, he said. But Alda never shied away from telling the truth, even when it was hard. In the middle of everything, Alda was writing. He didn't hire someone to write his book for him. He wrote by hand. Before his second book, Never Have Your Dog Stuffed, came out in 2007, it was the #1 book in the United States for 27 weeks. His mother, who had paranoid schizophrenia, came at him with a knife when he was 7 years old. He talked about painful parts of his past in the book. What he heard while talking to himself was his second book. It came out after he had a health scare in Chile. If I understood you, his third book, would I have this look on my face? Basically, it was about communication, which he had been studying for years while presenting Scientific American Frontiers. Alda wrote every month from 2005 to 2017, beginning at 3 a.m. until 5:00 a.m. He did this every morning for more than 4 days. He was in 12 movies and 3 big TV shows during that time. He had 23 languages made from his books, which sold over 7 million copies. He gave all of the money from the cents, about $8, $4 million to the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science. This center has taught more than 15,000 scientists how to talk about their work. Then July 31, 2018, morning came. Alda, who is 82 years old, told everyone on CBS This Morning that he had Parkinson's. But this wasn't a sad moment. His goal wasn't to get pity. In fact, he was diagnosed after an odd event. He had read that acting out your thoughts while you sleep could be a sign that you have the disease. In a dream one night, someone hit him and threw what he thought was a bag of potatoes. He really did throw his wife a pillow. He took a test because of that dream. He didn't go public because his symptoms were getting worse. People had just noticed that his thumb was moving while he was being interviewed. He didn't let the tabloids make up their own tales. He was in charge. He spoke freely and without shame. In the fall of that year, he did a show with Michael J. Fox called Clear Plus Vivid. Fox had been told at age 29. They talked in an open and positive way. Fox told them not to guess what would happen with the sickness in the future. Be present, and Alda agreed. After that, he joined Fox Insight, an online study for Parkinson's that helps doctors, not because they were sick, but because of how they thought. Alda's way of life was shaped by how she thought. He turned down kindness. Parkinson's disease was like a puzzle to him. It was shown that boxing, tennis, and even dancing to John Philip Sousa songs helped him get in shape. He told them, "Don't believe crazy things. That's what real science is for." He was still talking, playing, and moving at age 86. His message was easy to understand. The world is still going on. He wasn't going to slow down either.